side, we continue to lead in terms of usage, far outstripping Oracle and IBM with 48%, 47% share. We have a very secure database. We continue to lead the revolution when it comes to self-service BI and BI platform capabilities. And then with Windows Azure, we now have 1 year's worth of progress with tens of thousands of customers who are deploying solutions, ISVs who are deploying solutions, and hundreds being added every day. So we have significant momentum, and it's all really thanks to the investments that this group of folks have made over the years. We're building on the core capabilities you already have across this broad product line and the new capabilities you're adding. So if you look at the private cloud capabilities over the last year, we've got many, many of you who have gotten the capabilities to deploy private clouds. The proof of concepts, the design wins are rolling in. The pipeline for private clouds is very, very rich, even in the last 6 months. The SQL database is being incorporated by every ISV as part of their solution set. More important than that, we are now able to take those solutions that you've built on top of SQL Server and get design wins. We've had over 12,000 wins with SQL Server and your solutions over the last year. And with Windows Azure, we have a great start in terms of the number of people who have gotten now competencies to build cloud solutions using Azure. So we have over 30,000 of you who have gotten trained on Windows Azure capabilities. So that's all fantastic momentum, and we thank you very, very much for the commitment to the broad platform capabilities. Going forward, let's look at each one of these core competencies or core pillars of our strategy. So the first thing, for example, is private cloud. To get grounded on the private cloud opportunity, let's look at some numbers. The fact that virtualization is reaching an inflection point is not lost on us. Basically, last year, in terms of the instances outstripping the physical servers is a well-known fact. This year, perhaps the install base will cross over. But yet, in 2014, there will be 14% physical servers, which over 2011. It seems a little counterintuitive. The reason for that is because we together will be able to make this transformation beyond virtualization to building out of the private clouds and the public clouds in support of the applications our customers want to deploy. That's what's going to enable the customers in a friction-free way to consume both the infrastructure, the applications, and your services in order to be able to drive effectively additional appetite for these servers. So that's really the opportunity in front of us. And in order to really make sure we deliver on it, that's the focus for the next wave of products for us, System Center 2012 being particularly the near-term focus for us in terms of the next product delivery. The key design pillars for this next release of our product is to make sure that it's all about the app, because that's what customers care about. When it comes to the application, the things that we need to take into account from a management perspective is the ability to configure it, ability to monitor it, ability to update it, ability to move that application around. Those are the things that management software in concert with the application needs to deliver. Once you say that, the things like cross-platform come naturally. So of course we are going to be cross-platform at the hypervisor layer. We're going to be even cross-platform at the guest operating system layer because we recognize that customers are going to be heterogeneous. We also will span public and private because hybrid IT is what customers are going to have. It's not as if they will only have private clouds or only have public clouds. Both of these will be in parallel deployed in every customer's case. And lastly, we want to make sure that we have the best performance for our workloads on top of our hypervisor, bar none. Today with SQL Server, with SharePoint, with Exchange, we have great performance data, and we'll continue to push the envelope on it. But really, again, it's about the application and the application management. To give you a flavor for this in terms of what we're doing in System Center 2012, let me introduce up on stage Ryan O'Hara from our System Center team to show you the work that we're doing with System Center 2012 on app management. Ryan?
Thanks. Well, what we've seen so far is that the world is changing with respect to the applications and end user experiences that Microsoft and our partners are delivering to the world. Now, in addition to these end user experiences, we believe that the operations practices across the app lifecycle will also change in the context of cloud computing. Now, to give you a glimpse into what's coming, I want to share with you a new capability in System Center, one that we call App Controller. System Center App Controller is a management experience for IT professionals whose job it is to manage business applications in cloud computing environments. Let's jump into the console and take a look at what's here. Now, as we do, you'll see that we land on this overview pane, and the first thing I'll point out is that App Controller knows exactly who I am. You see, we've integrated an understanding of my identity across clouds, and as a result, I have single sign-on visibility into both my private cloud resources as well as my public cloud resources. And now I can look across all of my clouds and get an aggregated understanding of the applications and the virtual machines that I'm responsible for. If I go ahead and click to drill in here, I'm brought to a familiar virtual machine view. I've got this list view formatted of all of my individual application components. And from here, I can take some pretty simple administrative actions against these virtual machines. I can remote into them, start, stop them, even drive some configuration change. But this isn't the promise of cloud computing. This is still too complex and too focused on the infrastructure. You see, in cloud computing, we have an opportunity to look beyond all of this infra and focus on the services and the SLAs that you've delivered to your customers to drive their business forward. So let me show you how App Controller changes the game. I'm going to navigate over here to the services view, and as I do, I'm going to be met by a simplified tile layout of all of the applications that are running on my private cloud. But then, App Controller is going to reach out to Windows Azure and pull in the services that I've deployed on Windows Azure as well. Now, while simple in their layout, these tiles really pack a punch. Let's drill into this demographic application that I've got deployed on Windows Azure. Now, as I drill in, I get a services view showing me an end-to-end structure of the application, as well as all the components that make up this application. From here, I can interact with things like the processing tier, the reporting tier, even this web tier. Now, I can take some administrative action against individual roles here, or I can even scale it up or scale it out to accommodate incremental load. Since we're running on Azure, I'm going to take advantage of Azure's scalability and increase this web tier from 2 web roles to 4 web roles. And as I click through here and update, App Controller is going to help me by reaching out to Windows Azure and brokering this request on my behalf. Windows Azure is going to go ahead and spin up a couple of incremental web roles and then rebalance all of the traffic across this expanded capacity. As I refresh the interface, what you'll see is that App Controller has already begun to drive the change into the environment, and that application is already underway. Now, these services views are not just helpful in managing running applications, they also help me when I want to deploy new applications. So let's move over to my cloud environment here, where again, I can see my Windows Azure instances as well as my private cloud instances. And let's go ahead and deploy a new application. This time, App Controller is going to help me by allowing me to browse a library of best practices that we've gathered from throughout my organization for deploying new business applications. If I go ahead and select this BI service here, you'll see that the design surface now is populated with all of the instructions and best practices that are going to ensure that my deployment is successful. Now, we're almost there, ready to deploy this complex service. You see I've got a couple of things to impart into the system here, a couple of parameters, but you can see that most of these things are clickable, and in App Controller, if it's clickable, it's configurable. And with just those simple steps, we can deploy a new application. So that's a quick look at how we think cloud computing is going to change the operations lifecycle, and how with System Center, simple gestures deliver powerful results. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Believe me, if you're an application developer or a manager, this is as close as you'll get to Connect for your domain. And it's fantastic, it's revolutionary in terms of what it brings to application management. All of this is going to be part of System Center 2012 that's going to ship later this year. You'll also get a sneak preview of Windows Server 8, which is the next major release of Windows Server today in Robert Wabi's Value Keynote. And of course, you'll hear a lot more of this at our Build conference in September. So a lot of stuff coming for the private cloud. Let's now switch to the database. Now, one of the core opportunities, or the best way to think about the opportunity, is to look at a few numbers in terms of the data explosion. The overall data growth is just stunning. The growth is expected to be 40% year over year, far outstripping any IT spend growth. The number of verticals in which you have more data than the entire Library of Congress is 15 out of the 17 industry verticals have that kind of data. But yet, only 72%, or rather, only 72% of the people inside the organization do not have access to the BI capabilities to take all of that data and convert it into insight. Just because you have more data doesn't mean you have insight. And that's really the opportunity ahead of us in terms of the solutions we can bring to the marketplace, knowing that there's going to be a data explosion, but the idea is to convert that into insight. And that's what's fueling the next release of SQL Server for us in terms of its design pillars. We'll continue to push hard on the mission-critical readiness of SQL Server. That's been what really has been pushing up our share position up into the tier 1. High availability, we have many, many features in terms of active secondaries, multiple secondaries, application failover. These are all capabilities that are going to be part of SQL Server next release. Cloud on your terms, one of the things that we have really taken care of is to make sure that the programming model and the T-SQL capabilities are available as you span and migrate applications between the private and the public cloud, given SQL is available in Azure as well. And lastly, it's about continuing to lead with breakthrough insights with BI. We were the first to bring together the power of Excel with pivot views on top of SQL Server. And we're going to continue to push that to the next level. To give you a little bit of a flavor for what we're doing with data and data insight, I wanted to welcome up on stage Amer Netz from our SQL team to give you a demo of the next release of SQL Server. Amer?
Thank you, Satya. So Satya is talking about the explosion of data. Data in the cloud, data on-premise, big data, little data, data everywhere. What I'm going to show you is how you can take all this data and create some tremendous value. So in SQL Server Denali, we are introducing a new BI capability. We call it Project Crescent. We'd like to think of Project Crescent as the PowerPoint for data. Now let's take a look here. This is Project Crescent here on the screen, and on the right-hand side, you see the data model. The data model is something that you create. It's assembling all the pieces of data that the user will need when they create their data presentations. In this case, you're looking at the car dealership data model. Once you created that data model here, creating that presentation is a bit like magic. So let's take a look. We're going to start by laying out the cars list on the screen. One click, and the table is showing up. Crescent is really good with shaping of data. So if I want to just make it look a bit different, all I have to do is just resize it a little bit and convert it perhaps to a card form. Instead of a table, we get a card per card. Looks much better, right? Now we're going to continue and lay out a few more data items on the screen. We're going to look at the sales for each type of car. Just like that, we're going to put the table on the screen. Table is not so nice, so we're going to convert it into a column chart and make it a bit larger. And we're going to also look at the sales over time. That's also a very interesting data point. This one, we'll take a look and make it into a line chart. And just like that, I created a beautiful report, just in a few seconds. Now, not only that it looks great, it's also fully interactive. So if I want to take a look at the sales of compact cars, all I have to do is just click on